Dela writes, my MVVs, welcome.
Gospel allegedly scattered palace. Called Dr. Lizzy Queen Naomi's puppet. Drag Dr. Lizzy like I pass your neighbor generator. Kick. What happened? What is going on? Now, they said that Dr. Lizzy decided to approve a sum of 100 million naira that was meant for, according to gospel, that money was supposed to go to her foundation, Hope Alive. She runs a foundation called Hope Alive Foundation. And so they go around Africa, they cater for children and all of that. And usually, KBSC, from the royal coffers, they used to do, as part of their own corporate social responsibility, they go through foundations to support the poor, the less privileged children, and so on. But, since Naomi has not been in the palace, the person who has been benefiting most, you and I know, has been gospel. Gospel has done a project even in Uganda. Gospel has done project even in Namibia. Gospel has been doing a lot of projects from that Hope Alive Foundation. And it's important to understand that most of these projects, the major sponsorship comes from the Oni of Ife. So now there was a proposition, and it was supposed to cost her 112 million naira. They said that for this third quarter of the year, KBSC was actually supposed to release 130 million naira for 2 projects, okay? And usually the project will come from 2 foundations, not mainly foundations belonging to his Olorizo. It could be any other foundation. You know how they do funding for foundations to go and help the poor people. So this 130 million naira divided into 2, is it not supposed to be like, I think, if I know mathematicians in the house, tell us. It's supposed to be 65 million for each foundation, right? But the proposition that gospel presented came up to 112 million naira out of 130 million naira ceiling, right? And so when Dr. Lizzy looked at it, Dr. Lizzy said no, that the Wings Foundation have projects. The last time the Wings Foundation did any project was the project that landed Olori Naomi in trouble in Ibadan, and that was in December. And Dr. Lizzy felt like the Wings Foundation deserved to do some project or probably do some compensations, all of that. And Dr. Lizzy convinced KBSC to give 100 million out of the 130 to the Wings Foundation and give the 30 million to another foundation, right? And that was where the wahala started. They said the wahala gospel cried and cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. And you see, this happens to be one of those reasons why, they would never, ever have wanted Queen Naomi back into the palace of the Oni of Ife. Our people say the river does not forget those who bathed in it at midnight. So when you do some of these things and you think that, a day will come where people will just forget about it, and it doesn't work out that way. Dr. Lizzy still remembers. They said the palace of the Oni of Ife has always been a ground where many silent battles are fought, often with smiles masking hidden rivalries. In recent times, one of the fiercest but most quietly burning issues has been around money. Not just any money, but a substantial royal project fund amounting to, 130 million naira. Okay. Now, 112 million naira was to go to a particular foundation belonging to, KBSC's wife. leaving the remaining, smaller amount for whatever project. This money was set aside by the Oni of Ife with the oversight of the palace committee led by Dr. Lizzy to sponsor a humanitarian project. But like many things under royal roof, where tradition, power, and personal interest collide, it has become a storm shaking the very calm of the palace. Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl De La Ram. I bring you fresh and spicy gist from the source and still on the rails. How are you guys doing? I appreciate you so much. I love you. My people. It is not a small something, no. As we all know, Gospel runs, a foundation called Hope Alive Foundation. This foundation had recently drawn up an ambitious, project proposal detailing how they intended to execute community outreach programs, feed widows, send medical teams to underserved villages, and even roll out small-scale empowerment grants. Gospel personally took this project document beautifully bound in fine leather cover and presented it to the Oni of Ife, took picture. Can you see the frown face? Don't be me talking about na here. This is all alleged rumor, unverified information. No, making the rounds on social media. I don't know. Guy, so they total some 112 million naira. She was confident that with her relationship within the palace, it was only a matter of days before the fund would be approved and disbursed. But Gospel had, underestimated the fact that she was not the only one who had her eyes on this royal goodwill. Other proposals had also found their way through the royal house. Among them was one by the Wings Foundation, a foundation that many in Yoruba land already know belongs to Queen Naomi. Now, Wings Foundation has for years run projects ranging from skill acquisition, centers to, women's mental health, providing for women. And most recently, they were heavily involved in the aftermath of the Ibadan Stampede incident, helping victims with, compensation and medical support after everything that happened. Naomi went through a lot. I don't want to bore you with that detail because it's not something we want to be remembering. Please let that one go, okay? I know it was very painful to all of us, but okay, I know you already know that, right? Now, feeling threatened by this, Gospel thought she could tactfully, outmaneuver Queen Naomi's foundation. She decided to use a subtle strategy. She approached the Oni of Ife himself, laying out their argument in a very calculated way. She praised the Wings Foundation for all they had done in the past, but carefully planted a seed of doubt, suggesting that lately Wings Foundation had slowed down, that they hadn't taken up major projects in recent months. Perhaps, their hands are tied because of what happened in, Ibadan. But the twist came when she tried to be magnanimous, okay, or at least appear so. She proposed that perhaps if the king still wanted, he could allow a token, a small allocation to the Wings Foundation, enough for them to tidy up compensation for the Ibadan victims and run minor projects. But that bulk, the large slice of the cake, should go to Hope Alive Foundation. That was her argument, okay, with the Oni of Ife. Now, Dr. Lizzy, who, sit on top, at the Palace Financial Council and oversees the actual release of royal funds, is not just any official. She's one of the quiet but intellectual Dr. Lizzy, who is always on the side of the Oni of Ife. Dr. Lizzy, who is a woman whose loyalty has never been questioned by anyone as it has to do with the Oni of Ife, and who has always made it clear that the interest of the throne and its broader subject supersede any personal allegiance. When these proposals were laid before her, before her committee, she painstakingly reviewed every document, every proposed project, plan, every beneficial, outline. She noted something crucial. Despite the claims Gospel had made, the Wings Foundation had not only maintained steady operation, but has also recently completed emergency interventions for hundreds of people affected by the Ibadan incident. However, there were piles of letters from local communities and women groups attesting to the direct impact Wings Foundation continued to have on their life. To ignore all that in favor of a new rollout by Hope, foundation seemed not only unfair, but also politically and morally unwise. Dr. Lizzy also considered the emotional and symbolic weight it would carry if the palace failed to continue empowering the very foundation, run by Queen Naomi, especially at a time when so much had been done to rebuild her standing and cement her place in the royal circle after, past turbulence. After consulting with, key advisors and ultimately presenting her findings and recommendations to the Ooni of Ife, the decision was made. The 100,000 naira out of the 112,000 naira that Gospel had wanted would go to Wings Foundation, not only to enable them continue compensating victims from Ibadan, but also to expand several women-led cooperatives and continue their material health project in this state. The Ooni of Ife approved this decision wholeheartedly. For him, it was more than a matter of clarity. It was about continuity, healing, and making a clear statement that the palace stands by Queen Naomi's endeavors, which have become almost an extension of the royal obligations to the people. That decision, however, struck Gospel like a thunderclap on a clear day. Gospel started dragging Dr. Lizzy. Keep. They say Gospel was actually seen pacing the palace corridor, with her eyes swollen from weeping. She confided in close allies that she felt betrayed, but instead of directing her disappointment at the throne, she found an easier target in Dr. Lizzy. Gospel began to, openly brand Dr. Lizzy as nothing but Queen Naomi's puppet, accusing her of bias, whispering that Lizzy was only seeking to please Naomi so she could straighten her own position in the palace. Some even overheard Gospel saying that Dr. Lizzy had no independent judgment, that she moved only at Naomi's nod. In fact, she insulted the living daylight out of Dr. Lizzy. But of course, you do know that Dr. Lizzy could care less, because her own is make palace good, make things dey okay, make everybody dey okay, make me sef I born my pikin for my Kabi AC. And so she is ready to do what she feels is in the interest of the palace, and she did not even mind. And things are not looking good for these other women in the palace right about now. I'm going to bring you more updates. Do not forget that these are all alleged, rumored, unverified information making the rounds on social media and should not be seen as fact.